I'm traveling down Front Street in Niagara-on-the-Lake, and with a change of plan, I'm planning on heading from Lake Ontario now to Niagara Falls. And in Niagara-on-the-Lake, back in 1781, it was actually called Butlersburg, and then it was renamed in 1792 to Newark, and it was actually the capital of Upper Canada from 1792 to 1797, when it was moved to York, which is now Toronto. And Niagara-on-the-Lake is famous for, historically, Old Fort George. Fort George was instrumental in the War of 1812. It was located on the north end of the Niagara River, and it protected Upper Canada from Old Fort Niagara across the river, held by the Americans. I'm down at the shores of Lake Ontario, and over to my left here is Lake Ontario. Over to my right here is the mouth of the Niagara River coming into the lake. It's 22 kilometers from the base of Niagara Falls to the shoreline of Lake Ontario. And across the river you can actually see the Old Fort Niagara, which was really important during the War of 1812. Traveling through Niagara-on-the-Lake along the parkway, and on the left-hand side coming up, you're going to see a building. It's called Navy Hall. Navy Hall was the Parliament building during the time when Newark was the capital of Upper Canada. Navy Hall was destroyed by the Americans during the War of 1812. But then it was rebuilt. Standing out here at the Niagara River, with the river flowing from Niagara Falls to my right and into Lake Ontario to my left, that's heading north. Heading up the parkway now towards Queenston. And I'm traveling with the river to my left. The river is actually flowing north to Lake Ontario, and this river was very important to travel in the 17 and 1800s. If you have to realize that there was a lot of bush, a lot of forest. Things were not too much traveled during that period of time, other than on the river. There was a lot of travel on the river, and ships coming in from Toronto, from Lake Ontario, would travel up the Niagara River to Queenston Docks. And you're going to see that in a bit. But then the problem was that when they got to that point, they couldn't get up the rapids, and they couldn't get up the falls, obviously. So what they had to do was they had to do a portage. And they did a portage from Queenston to Chippewa. And then everything was loaded up onto ships above the falls, above the upper end of the Niagara River, and they were carried on from there. Portage Road in Niagara Falls is actually named after that portage, and from what I read on the internet, It pretty much follows the same path that the old Portage Trail um, covered. So uh, very, very interesting history there. Today, the river is used by um, people who are fishing out there, pleasure crafts. Also is the whirlpool jet boats, which are located in Queenston and take you for a speedboat ride up the Niagara River, through the rapids to the whirlpool. If you want to get soaked, you can certainly do it on that river. However, they also have covered boats so that you can see outside the glass windows, but you don't actually get wet.
This is just a little view of what you're going to get soon. The Niagara River, the Niagara Lake.
The reason I switched traveling directions halfway through this video was in order to highlight an event that took place along the Niagara River. Back thousands of years ago, at the end of the Wisconsin glaciation, large flows of water were released from melting ice, draining into the Niagara River and then into Lake Iroquois, which is present-day Lake Ontario. This occurred at the Niagara Escarpment, which you can see in this video clip. And the drop in elevation was only 35 feet. As the level of Lake Iroquois dropped about 100 feet over time, the falls started eroding south, creating the Niagara Gorge. Niagara Falls is said to be one of the fastest moving falls in the world and is still eroding at a much slower rate thanks to human intervention, but will continue to work its way towards Lake Erie and become nothing more than a rapids. This photo is a photo of the birthplace of Niagara Falls. It's called Roy Terrace and it's located in the Queenston-Lewiston area. This diagram is a diagram of the erosion of Niagara Falls beginning in 1678 to the present day, as you can see it moving back towards Lake Erie. We're now traveling through the village of Queenston, which is in the town of Niagara-on-the-Lake. Queenston's known historically for a couple of things. Number one is it was the home of Laura Secord. Laura Secord was Canada's version of Paul Revere. She took a message from Queenston, 20 miles away, to the Q Falls to warn the British that the Americans were planning an invasion. The second historical significance is the Battle of Queenston Heights. Took place here during the War of 1812. The Americans crossed the Niagara River to invade Canada. They were repelled by the British at Queenston. There is a monument. It's called Brock's Monument that was erected in Queenston Heights to commemorate that battle. Another historical event, which we alluded to earlier in this video, is that the Queenston docks, which are located on the shores of the Niagara River, are also located in Queenston. And we talked about the ships coming up the river, Niagara River, from Lake Ontario and docking at the Queenston docks. Today, people come down here, park on the shoreline, and fish, or either they launch their boats and go out into the river and fish out in the river. Back in the early 1900s, though, steamships like the Cayuga, pictured here, docking at the Queenston docks, would drop passengers off, and then they would be picked up by streetcars and taken up to Niagara Falls. Definitely a different way of life. We're now traveling up the side of the Niagara Escarpment, going up in elevation by about 250 feet. The Niagara Escarpment you saw earlier in the distance down the Niagara River. We're now climbing up that escarpment and following the parkway towards Niagara Falls. In a couple of seconds, you're going to see a video of the Niagara River as it looks from the top of the escarpment. This is the Niagara River now flowing down towards Queenston and then on to Niagara Lake and into Lake Ontario. People fishing down there on the water. Up to my right here you can see the whirlpool off in the distance. The river is flowing towards my left, towards Lake Ontario. The rapids along this river are classed as high as 5 or 6, and the highest classification for rapids is class 6. So these are fairly quick moving waters. So there's the rapid down there. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit so you can see the water. Now, that rapid goes into the whirlpool. That's the aero car that goes across the river in the summertime. People can get on that car. But this is the whirlpool over here. And then the water continues all the way on down the river towards Lake Ontario. I'm standing beside the Whirlpool Bridge, and off in the distance there you can see the American Falls and the Bridal Veil Falls. The American Falls is 180 feet tall and about 850 feet wide. In order for the falls to reach this present day position, it's had to travel upriver 11 kilometers from the Niagara Escarpment, and that was done over a period of thousands of years. Standing above the falls now, upriver from the falls. The rapids that you see here, they're traveling approximately 22 miles an hour, over 40 kilometers on their way over the edge of the falls, and then down into the gorge.
Okay.
The water heading over the falls here now is approximately 2 feet deep, and it's falling over the falls at about 68 miles per hour. There's enough water that goes over the falls in 1 minute to fill 70 Olympic-sized swimming pools, and the width of the falls here is approximately 2,200 feet.
Ready? Ready for this, guys? Ready for this? Wait till you see this view.